Hi, thank you all for being here. So, I'd like to start with this quote that says, "Our enormously productive economy demands that we make consumption our way of life." And this could be a sentence from 2016. We live now on an overly consumption society, but this is actually from 1955. So basically, over the last half century, we have changed nothing on the way how we see our economy. And this has kind of led us to a very, very, very bad path. We consume every year 1.5 more times than what the Earth can provide us with, which means we are literally exploiting our resources. And if that wasn't enough in the environmental perspective, we also build one of the most unequal societies that we can imagine. If you stop to think of all the resources that are consumed in the world, only 20% of the population consumes 80% of the total resources, which is insane. If that was not enough data, the 62 richest people alive on Earth have the same amount as the 50% poorest of the total of the world population. So the system we built is leading us to this way. So we all stopped and we said, okay, we are in a moment that we can't go on with that. We got in a pattern that is not healthy and most of all, it's not sustainable. We can sustain the society that we ourselves built. So all the nations, they gathered last year and they signed these 17 goals for sustainable development. But what is missing? We can't just go in a meeting with world leaders and say, hey, let's have 17 goals and we'll reach this by just pure will. This will not happen. There are steps missing. And I'm here to say that government itself, it's not going to do the job. We need to empower civil society. We need to bring people together on this moment. We need to make everyone join this effort. And how can you do that? You need to empower the population. However, we have a very, very weird global law, that allows us to have patents. So last year alone, the office in the United States has granted 5 million patents, which is insane. So we have the technology, we have the means, we have the resources to reach all these 17 goals, but we keep them concentrated into a few people's hands, and the ones who hold the means of production are not the ones producing. So we are each time more excluding the civil society and the civil participation, controlling the means of production, and withholding knowledge. Patent laws are only withholding knowledge and technology that could lead us to a more innovative and disruptive path that will actually make us reach these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. This is why the way to go is for us to start building an open source society. Why? Because if you start to share knowledge, first of all, you can kill programmed obsolescence. You have the right to fix your own stuff. If you bought a computer, it's yours. Consumption argues that you have the right to your properties. So if this is your property, why you don't have the right to fix it? Continue on this same line of thought, we think that, okay, this is my idea, I will do it myself, and then I take years for develop an innovation that is much needed now. So if I open my idea to other people together with me, if I crowdsource it for others to engage, I will have much faster technological advances. And I will also lower the cost of development. Because now one of the reasons that we hold this kind of stuff is, oh no, I'm holding this technology, I have this patent because it's way too expensive to develop it. But it's too expensive because you're making it centralized on yourself. You're considering all the costs only based on you. You're not sharing this with anyone. Other than that, if you start sharing the things you have in your mind, you can amplify the possibilities of usage. So I have an idea in Brazil, and it's a completely different system than it is here in Europe. You have a completely different context. If I start sharing with people all these possibilities, maybe someone of you here today will think, okay, maybe I can take this to Europe and develop it here, just make some small adjustments and bring it to a different context. And then you start really bringing civil society to this sustainable development. You start empowering people into taking matters in their own hands, and you stop with this idea that the government will take us on this beautiful path that we can sustain ourselves. So to talk a little bit more about that, I brought today 3 practical examples that I was involved with. The first one is these 2 incredible materials. The first one that you can see here is called air carbon. This is one of the coolest things I've seen recently. These guys are literally making plastic out of air. I mean, it sounds impossible. It sounds like kind of witchy stuff, but it's not. They managed to take greenhouse gases out of the air, and they have a lot of chemical process that turns the air into plastic pellets. So this is not even carbon neutral. This actually can reduce carbon emission. You have plastic that reduces carbon emission. And may I remind you that we live in a society where the last data we have in 2013, we consumed 300 million tons of plastic. Now, can you imagine the size of the impact that if this was open source? Can you imagine how much we could change our world if everyone who is producing plastic could have access to this technology? It would be amazing, right? On the other hand, this was my graduation project. Everybody thinks coconut is great. I myself am a coconut lover. I drink coconut water almost every day living in a tropical country like Brazil. But it's actually a kind of a problem to us because 7% of our garbage daily is made out of coconut fiber. So, and we still have dumpsters in Brazil. They're trying to change that, but it's a government law, so civil society is not involved, and we still have dumpsters. And as this is a huge problem because these are like polluting landfills, and coconuts actually become a very comfortable environment for diseases to spread. So a lot of people were running behind inventing technologies to use coconut fiber. And then I said, okay, I want to develop one material that is open source, low tech, and low cost. And the engineers all looked at me because I'm a product designer, and they were like, yeah, okay, go there, do whatever you want, you crazy girl. And I was like, no, I really believe that we can do that. And then I developed this material. I got an award, people gave me money, and the first thing everyone always asks me is, do you already have your patent? And I always say, no, I don't want this to be patent. On the other hand, I want every single farmer in Brazil, I want everyone, because we still have a lot of workers in landfill, people that are literally collecting garbage to sell for teeny tiny cents. I want them to have access to this. This is why it's so important that this project is low tech, that these are only made with materials that people can afford, that people can buy, that you don't need to develop a mold, that you can get a mold that you have on your house, like a bucket, and do things out of it. This needs to be open, because if I keep this open, I'll make a much bigger impact with it. It makes no sense to have a patent on something that will make a more sustainable development, that will only improve the state of the world. And not just talking about environmental stuff here, but also I give the opportunity for a lot of people who work in landfills and right now have kind of a miserable life because they get paid nothing, to process a raw material and make better for themselves. So I'm decreasing inequality. Why do I want to keep this to me? This is not how it was supposed to be. This is other example. This is a very high-tech, one of the best are in the market right now, energy monitor. And it's super expensive. It costs $300 for you to have. It's the cheapest one I could find. On the other hand, this is a project that was developed during the POC21. I'm not aware if everyone knows what this is. This was one of the most amazing experiences I had in my whole life, and I'm not just saying that because I was there, but because everybody needs to know about it. It was a 5-week maker camp held in France, gathered from OpenState and WeShare, where they selected 12 open source projects that somehow tackle one of the issues that are leading us to carbon emission and polluting the world. So 12 projects that will help us environmentally. And all of these projects are now available, like the blueprints. If you go to their webpage, it's all there so that anyone can access it. This was one of the projects developed there. It's called Open Energy Monitor, and it has exactly the same quality as this one. It's able to manage like individual sources of energy. It's able to control which appliance is consuming how much energy, so you can actually understand how you are consuming that. Now, one might think, oh, this is not that important. This is extremely important, because you cannot change something if you are not aware of what your problem is. So this is an object that empowers people. And if we want to reduce our energy consumption, how can you do it if you don't understand how you're making it on the wrong way? And here in Europe, I think maybe you guys can have a bit of an idea on how to proceed. But in Brazil, we have a lot of slums, especially in Rio, where I come from. Slums are huge everywhere. It's actually almost like it's 160% of the population. And they're now starting this called pacification process, where actually the energy companies are going inside the favelas. And they realize that 40% of their energy loss over the year is because people are stealing energy from them. And the same people that were stealing are now, they have to pay the energy bill. And they often end up with their energy being cut because they never had to pay one bill in their lives for energy, so they don't understand how they consume. So this is education. This is made for you to educate people on understanding how they are impacting the world. And then you have one company, and I understand because they put a lot of effort and a lot of money into developing this. But if they had gone on this path, where you have an amazing maker camp of 5 weeks with experts from all over the world willing to help you develop it, you would have a much lower cost. And then you cause an impact on education. And then you really start building a path to sustainable development. This is kind of my baby, let's say it. Here you have, this is called material connection. I'm not sure if everyone here knows, probably some of you know it. It's the biggest material library in the world. They have the biggest database in the world on materials in general. They charge you quite a big fee for you just to see these materials. Okay, so you are literally withholding information, not empowering people, keeping knowledge all to yourself or for the ones who can pay you for it. And this is what my company does. We are now the biggest database in Brazil only for social, environmental responsible materials, products, and services. And we don't charge for it. We make all this knowledge free. So if you access our platform, you see we have 6 responsibility drivers like safety, life cycle, management, social issues, and we analyze each of these materials, and we make all this analysis available for free. This was what we developed for POC21. So all the materials available in POC21, like for the projects, were all sourced and analyzed by us. And all this database is also available at POC. If you go online, they have this for everyone to see. And what we do is, our goal is to empower people, mainly in creative industry, which are the ones designing and producing stuff, so they know what their impact is. Also because it's not worth it. Like if I just come and say, hey, take this paper, it's sustainable. Here, take it for you. How do I know it's sustainable? Oh, it has one of those sustainability labels. But who here actually knows what having an FSC or a GBC label means? You're not actually empowering people with knowledge. You're just saying, trust me because I have this label. You need to bring knowledge so people can think by themselves. Because if you change context, then something that is sustainable in one context is not sustainable in another one. Maybe if you go to, I don't know, Greenland or Iceland, where you live in a more equal society, you should take more care with environmental issues. Maybe back in Brazil, where we have one of the biggest inequality rates in the world, it's more important to have social issues being addressed with one material. So if you change context, you change your impact. And how do I analyze the impact if I don't know what's being measured, if I don't withhold information? So this is what we need to understand, that we need to have a much more friendly and shareable approach to knowledge if we want to have a true sustainable development. If we want to achieve what all these countries signed with the UN, we need to take matters in our own hands. We need to be open to actually talk to each other, to actually share with each other. This is the only way we reach that. Thank you. We have some minutes left in case anyone wants to ask something or propose an argument or anything like that. If anyone wants to speak, can you please raise your hands? We have someone there. Oh, and I was asked to please do not speak before you have the mic so that everyone can hear what you're saying.
Thank you very much for your inspiring talk. I want to come back to the topic of the patents, which you were discussed at the start of your talk. Just recently I heard that Elon Musk from Tesla has decided to open patents, exactly for the same reason I think that you just said, that he said he was hindering development in a very important area. And I wonder if you think that there could be some kind of, momentum or a movement of other big companies doing that, basically releasing their patents into the open space. Maybe similar to the movement of, big private donors, like Mark Zuckerberg saying, I'm going to donate so much money, Bill Gates Foundation. Is there any kind of momentum that others are, like big companies, are going on in that line of thought?
I don't think this is like, if we stop to think, but here is like really my personal opinion, okay? I think that we are really going towards this path. If we stop to like Material Connection a few years ago, they tried to enter Brazil, for instance. And when they ran into us, they were like, oh, we want to talk to you because we're going to Brazil, so maybe we can partner. And they were like, cool, it's the biggest database in the world. We're going to partner, make more knowledge free. And then they said, yeah, but we're not making it free. And we were like, what? And they were like, yeah, it's not really our business model. And we were like, no, but we are not okay with this. And then we had this whole discussion for a while. And it ended up that they didn't go to Brazil. So it's a country where they're not in there like right now. And I think I see, this is something that I've been keeping up to, more and more movements, like civil society movements are happening. And I think all of these movements are going to start bearing the companies, like stop the companies from expanding their market. And I think what Tesla did was really smart, because they took the lead. This is something that I think in the next 10 years is going to happen. The big companies, they're called like the corporations or conglomerates, they're going to be not taken down but their markets are going to be very reduced because of civil empowerment, because it is growing. And not just because people are more interested into open source topics, but also because the access that we now have to internet and this kind of stuff is really growing. Even like if you go to any country, people are really starting to communicate. So we have the tools that are enabling us to go on this direction. And I think this will make these companies, they will have to adapt to it. So Tesla was really smart taking the leap, you know, let's say, the leap of faith, let's say like that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? So.
Thanks for your talk. I have a question about where do you see the challenges for adapting to a European context? Because when I imagine an average consumer here, it would probably be more work. Of course, the outcome would be more sustainable, but at first it would be more work to use a open data instruction to, for example, build something. So where do you see, how can people be motivated to use this?
Do you mean specifically about one of the projects or to open source projects?
Yeah, for example, the chair you showed, like if a technology like this would be available, it would, of course, ask from the individual some more work to, to build this or to engage into the process instead of just buying something.
Yeah, I think, this is a topic, like, I think the biggest fear that people have, and it's always the first question that I receive, is how to make money. How do you make money if you have an open source project? But what really needs to be done now, I think, to like foster this kind of development is to make people understand that you can have money. I have bills, I pay rent, I need to eat, I'm just like everyone else here. And what needs to be done is like people need to start thinking outside the box and need to start creating new business models for this kind of structure. We still haven't explored all the edges of open source business models. There's still a lot to go. And I talked this about like my own company. We struggle with this, I think, every single day because we have an open database. How do we make money out of it? We have some people that like civil society that puts that like give us just to foster the idea. The POC21 community has patrons itself. So I think the biggest challenge is to engage people in understanding that it's not because it's open source that it means you will never have a revenue. It means that you're not exclusively profit-oriented, that you see bigger values, but you also, obviously, you will need to make money for yourself. And I think this is the biggest challenge, like people understanding. And I don't think this is limited to European context. I think this is like in general in the whole world. I think that Europe has a better take on it than, let's say, Brazil or Latin American countries in general, because we deal with other questions, like other topics that sometimes make people feel more unsafe and unprotected, let's say like that. But yes, in general, I think the biggest challenge will be how to design new business models and to have really smart people that really are good at designing business models to stop and look at that. Like, okay, let's build business models to open source communities. Anyone else has another question? Here.
Hi, yeah. Thank you for your talk. I have one question I still don't get my head around also when thinking about implementing an open source product right here, and we're thinking about it for a while, and I just wanted to ask you if you could share how you got the funding of your project started and how this worked for you in Brazil, and maybe what we can learn from it to get better at this right here.
Okay, so the first project, the one with the packaging, the material developed, that was during school, so I just had time. And also I could use the technical resources in the school. But they are very open to partnering with people. So this is one thing, like crowdsource, I think is one of the best things that you can do if you want to start an open source project. Bring more people that is engaged in this specific issue, so they can help you, because it's not always that you need money. You just need like actually manpower, like people that can open the resources they have intellectually, physically, money to you. The database that we started, we started just because we are a design company as well, and we use these materials because we were a sustainable design company. So we had this database to ourselves, and then our friends were always calling like, hey, can you give me the contact of this supplier, of that supplier? And it was an Excel spreadsheet. And then we were like, why don't we just share this with everyone so everyone stops like calling us? And we made a spreadsheet on Excel that it was just shared, like open to people to check the data and put their inputs if they wanted to add stuff. And then we were like, okay, this is like, people are really using it. Okay, let's make a WordPress. It's really easy. Any one of us, we can do it. And we did it. And then when we decided, and then when we got like a huge visibility because of that, we said, okay, maybe it's time to go a little bit more pro. And then we opened a crowdfunding campaign saying, hey, do you use this? Do you think you could have use in your life, even if you're not in creative industry, because we have products there that you could need if you want to understand your role as a consumer and your impact. And then we did a big crowdfunding campaign in Brazil, which financed the first development of the platform. Then after that, what we do is, like, this is our particular business model. We have the platform. You have all the contacts there, like you have the contacts for all the suppliers. We are not the middleman, so you don't need to come to us to go to them. And but sometimes, especially like big industry, like the aircraft industry in Brazil, like it's like kind of our Boeing or Bombardier or something like that. They have open access to it, but they wanted us to develop one specifically for them, with only materials that could be used inside aircraft that need to be certified, So we charge them for this kind of service. We provide consultancy with this very same knowledge that is there, but we help the industries on how to apply this to their own products. And for that we charge, because that is a specific project that is being developed to a specific client. And we always try to negotiate with them, which like Embraer, which is the name of the aircraft company, they were okay with it. All the materials that we did a huge study for them, and we said, okay, but all the materials that we developed for you guys are still gonna go available online. So we managed to increase our database. So we try to make this kind of agreements, and also a portion of what we make with the consultancy obviously go to sustain the platform. And we also have a Patreon system that is like people who just believe in the idea and want to support us. They donate like R$5 a month, which is like €1, just to help us pay. We have like some fixed costs. So this is it. Okay, I think we are over with the time. Thank you very much for listening.